Have you ever made a mistake at work that you were just absolutely certain was going to completely derail your career?
Oh, man.
You know the exact feeling we're talking about, right? You're sitting there,
Whoa.
maybe you send this highly sensitive email to the totally wrong client.
Or you just completely botch a major presentation.
Exactly. Or you deliver a project and it just falls completely flat.
Right.
And in that exact moment, your stomach just drops.
You get that cold sweat.
Yeah, and you think, well, that's it. I'm done. They are finally going to figure out I have no idea what I'm doing, and my reputation is ruined.
It is, it's a universally relatable anxiety. I mean, we really tend to view our professional lives.
It's like they're glass.
Yes. These incredibly fragile constructs. We convince ourselves that one bad day or, one subpar piece of output is going to permanently define our trajectory.
But it doesn't usually happen that way, does it?
That's the consistently compelling part. When you actually examine the architecture of long, successful careers across almost any field, that is rarely how it plays out.
The defining question isn't whether you're eventually going to produce a dud.
Right, because you will. Everyone does.
It's how your larger body of work absorbs and neutralizes that dud.
Exactly.
Which brings us perfectly to today's deep dive. Because we have, honestly, the ultimate historical case study of exactly this phenomenon.
It's a fascinating one.
And we're pulling all of our insights today from a single, highly specific source. We are looking at a Wikipedia article about a 1957 pop album.
Simply titled Pat.
Yeah, Pat, released on Dot Records by Pat Boone.
On the surface, I mean, it really just reads like a standard, brief encyclopedia entry about a mid-century pop record.
Right, but if you look closer at the data points...
Which is what we're here to do.
Exactly. You look at the chronology, the critical reception, the track details, and crucially, that massive discography listed at the end of the article.
It completely transforms. It goes from a basic summary into a masterclass in career survival.
Our mission today is to explore exactly how early momentum can insulate a career against a critical misstep.
So, to really understand how dangerous this particular flop was, we have to look at exactly when it happened in his career.
The timing is everything. So it's 1957. Pat Boone is releasing this studio album, Pat. And the chronology in the source shows this is his third studio album.
Sandwiched right in the middle.
Yeah, it's directly between his 1956 album, Howdy, and another album he released in that exact same year, 1957.
Called Hymns We Love.
Right. 2 full albums in a single calendar year.
Which, by the way, implies a really grueling production pace.
Definitely. But that specific placement.
Album number 3.
Yeah. Why is that so critical?
Well, releasing your third studio album is traditionally a highly vulnerable position for an artist.
Because you're not a legacy act yet.
Exactly. You're not established enough to be bulletproof. You've had your debut. You've hopefully survived the dreaded sophomore slump.
And now everyone is watching.
The industry, the critics, the public, they are all looking at album number 3 to determine if you are a permanent fixture or just a passing fad.
And according to the critics, this third album, Pat, was a major misstep.
It did not land well.
No. The source includes this retrospective review from AllMusic, a critic named Arthur Rowe.
Right.
And he gave the album a pretty dismal 2.5 out of 5 stars.
No.
He flat out calls it a bad album.
He doesn't sugarcoat it.
Not at all. And he goes even further. He writes that this album might have gone some distance toward derailing his career early on.
Gone some distance toward derailing. That's a very specific phrase.
It is. What do you make of that?
It implies a significant wobble. You know, the train didn't completely come off the tracks, but the wheels definitely lifted off the rails for a terrifying second.
Yeah.
Releasing a critically panned 2.5-star album when you're still establishing your footing.
In a highly competitive 1950s pop market, no less.
Oh, it's incredibly risky. The public's attention span is short.
Always has been.
And there's this endless supply of younger, hungrier artists just waiting to take your spot on the charts.
But the train didn't derail.
No, the wheels hit the tracks again.
And Rowe's review actually tells us why he thinks Boone survived it.
He does.
He writes that Boone was saved because he had gotten off to a fast start.
Right.
Specifically, Rowe notes that Boone had previously delivered good, energy-charged rock and roll.
And an excellent album of standards.
Yes. This introduces a really fascinating dynamic.
Rowe isn't just saying Boone survived because people liked him.
No, it's more strategic than that.
He's saying Boone survived because he had diversified his portfolio early on.
He didn't just have one hit in one style.
Exactly. He had demonstrated competence in high-energy rock and roll, and he had proven he could handle traditional standards.
He established a really broad, sturdy foundation.
It's essentially the classic corporate get-out-of-jail-free card.
Oh, how so?
Think about it. If you've crushed your KPIs for a solid year, and you've proven you can handle multiple different types of accounts.
Your boss is likely to overlook one blown presentation.
Precisely. Boone had built up that same equity, but with the record-buying public.
That career equity is huge.
Because of those early deposits into the bank of public opinion, a 2.5-star album didn't signal a fundamental lack of talent.
Right, it wasn't a death sentence.
It was interpreted merely as a misfire on a specific project.
The failure couldn't permanently stick to him because his prior successes acted as a shock absorber.
So what does a 1957 misfire actually look like?
Well, let's dissect the track list, because the source gives us the full A-side and B-side breakdown.
And it is revealing.
Oh, the constraints and eccentricities of 1950s pop music are on full display here. The stylistic dissonance between these song titles is just striking.
It's an incredibly eclectic mix.
Which might be a polite way of saying it completely lacks cohesion.
Fair point.
Just listen to the sequence on side one. We open with Flip, Flop, and Fly, followed by Pledging My Love, Money Honey, Tomorrow Night, and then
This is the one that really gets me.
Ain't Nobody Here But Us Chickens.
Amazing.
Right. And he wraps up the side with Shake a Hand. Then you flip the record over to side two, and you get Honey Hush, Please Send Me Someone to Love, I'm in Love Again, Rock Around the Clock, Shotgun Boogie, and 5, 10, 15 Hours.
When you hear that list read aloud in sequence, what is your immediate impression of the album's identity?
Honestly, it feels completely scattershot.
Yeah.
You have these bizarre novelty titles about chickens sitting right next to earnest romantic pledges.
Which are right next to rock anthems and shotgun boogies.
It feels way less like an album and more like a strategy of just throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks.
And that reflects the reality of the pop music machine at the time.
The concept of the album as a cohesive, thematic, artistic statement.
Like a concept album.
Yeah, the way we think of albums post-1960s, that wasn't fully established yet.
Not at all. For pop vocalists in 1957, an album was often just a physical container.
Just a vessel to hold discrete, unrelated tracks.
But look closer at the source data regarding the songwriters.
Right, the Wikipedia article specifically credits writers for several tracks, particularly on side one.
Who do we have?
We have Don Roby and Ferdinand Washington listed for Pledging My Love. Jesse Stone wrote Money Honey. Sam Coslow and Will Gross wrote Tomorrow Night. Joe Morris wrote Shake a Hand.
What does that tell you?
Well, it makes it very clear that Pat Boone wasn't writing this material.
And that detail is crucial to understanding the industry structure back then. Pop stars of this era relied heavily on a stable of professional songwriters.
Usually sourced by the label, right?
Or A&R representatives, yeah. Their job was to just churn out material.
So the artist was the voice, the face, and the brand.
But the raw material was sourced from this complex industrial network of professional writers.
But wait, if we look at that critically,
Yeah.
if Boone didn't write the songs, and side one is penned by guys like Jesse Stone and Joe Morris.
Shouldn't Arthur Rowe's critique be aimed at the label's A and R team?
Exactly. If the songs are bad, why is Boone's career the one on the line for a 2.5-star review?
That is the double-edged sword of being a pop vocalist in that era. You don't have to write the hits, but you still have to wear the failures.
Yeah.
When a critic calls it a bad album, part of that critique is about song selection. Curation and interpretation. The artist is essentially at the mercy of the material they're handed.
But the public only sees the name on the album cover.
Which makes that career equity we talked about even more vital.
Right, because if your product relies on an external supply chain of songwriters, and you get handed a bad batch of songs,
you need the public to forgive the final product.
There is another detail hidden in this track list that fundamentally changes how you view that early review.
This is one of my favorite parts.
I want you, listening right now, to think about the length of your favorite song. In the modern era, it's probably 3, maybe 4 minutes long.
Yeah, at least.
Let's look at the runtimes for every single track on the album Pat.
The pattern is highly specific.
And very rigid. The longest track on the entire album is Tomorrow Night on side one.
Guess how long it is?
It clocks in at a mere 2 minutes and 45 seconds.
That is the absolute epic of this record.
2:45.
Yeah.
And if we look at the other end of the spectrum,
It gets even shorter.
the shortest track is on side 2. Track 3, I'm in Love Again, is exactly 1 minute and 59 seconds long.
He doesn't even cross the 2-minute mark.
And the rest of the album is tightly clustered right around the 2-minute and 10-second mark. Honey Hush is 2:10. Rock Around the Clock is 2:03.
If we extrapolate on these rigid time constraints, we can clearly see the structural formula of 1950s pop music laid bare.
It was a machine.
A highly calibrated commercial product designed for a specific medium.
Primarily AM radio and 45 RPM jukeboxes.
The mandate was clear. Get in, deliver the primary hook, and get out in under 2.5 minutes.
But why so universally short? Was it really just a limitation of the physical vinyl?
Physical limitations definitely played a role, but it was primarily a psychological and commercial calculation.
Yes.
It maximizes replayability. The entire goal of a pop track in this era was to be catchy enough that the listener immediately wants to drop another coin in the jukebox.
Or go buy the single the second it ends.
Exactly. By keeping it hovering around 2 minutes, you never overstay your welcome. You actually leave the audience slightly unsatisfied.
Actively craving another spin.
Yes.
Which actually provides a massive defense mechanism against a bad review.
It really does.
Think about it. If an album is full of tracks that aren't that great, like a 2.5-star album, the experience of listening to them is incredibly brief.
Right. A poorly executed 2-minute song is just a fleeting annoyance.
You can forgive a bizarre 2-minute novelty song about chickens way easier than you can forgive a sprawling, self-indulgent 7-minute bad song.
The brevity literally minimizes the damage.
The format itself has a built-in risk mitigation strategy.
The pain is over quickly.
And the listener is on to the next track before they have time to truly dwell on the misstep.
So, we've looked at the anatomy of this specific misstep.
The vulnerability of the third album.
The stylistic dissonance of the track list.
The reliance on an external supply chain of writers.
And those rapid-fire runtimes.
But to really understand how Pat survived its 2.5-star review, we have to look at the back half of this Wikipedia article.
Because when you scroll down past the track list,
the entire context of that review shifts.
You're referring to the sheer scope of the discography section.
The volume is just staggering. When you look past this one little 1957 album, you are confronted with a mountain of musical output.
It goes on forever.
The album Pat wasn't a definitive statement. It was just a tiny drop in a massive, decade-spanning ocean of releases.
This is where we see the strategy of relentless output in action.
Yeah.
If you release one album and it gets 2.5 stars, that defines your career.
Right.
But if you release dozens and dozens of albums over multiple decades, a 2.5-star album from 1957 loses its power to define you.
It ceases to be a career derailer and simply becomes a statistical anomaly.
And the variety in these later studio album titles is fascinating.
It really is. We start with the early chronological stuff from the source, like Howdy and Hymns We Love.
Standard 1950s fare.
But as you read further down the list, you see him rapidly pivoting to capture different markets. You have Pat Boone sings Irving Berlin right next to Stardust and White Christmas.
He's covering his bases, anchoring himself to established American classics while still churning out contemporary pop.
But then the titles start reflecting shifting cultural trends in a way that creates some serious thematic whiplash.
They get pretty wild.
You get an album titled I Was Kaiser Bill's Batman.
Yep.
Then there's Timey Kangaroo Down Sport.
Amazing.
He jumps into regional genres with The Countryside of Pat Boone and Texas Woman.
It suggests an artist who is not precious about his output.
Not at all.
He is willing to try anything, record anything, and pivot to whatever the market might respond to.
And that willingness to pivot culminates in what has to be the most surprising title on this entire list.
Oh, I know the one you're talking about.
The heavy metal album.
Yes.
In a metal mood, No More Mr. Nice Guy.
The contrast here is just striking. When you look at an artist who goes from singing a 2-minute version of Flip, Flop, and Fly on a tightly constrained 1957 pop record
to eventually recording an album called In a Metal Mood,
you are looking at a career built on absolute fearlessness regarding critical reception.
He refused to be paralyzed by a bad review or by genre conventions.
And it wasn't just the studio albums keeping the engine running.
No. The source lists an enormous catalog of singles.
And in the 1950s and 60s, singles were the true currency of the music industry.
These are the individual tracks that kept his name on the radio and in the public consciousness, even if a specific album project like Pat didn't land with the critics.
The volume of singles listed is a testament to that strategy.
It is over 50 singles long. We are talking about massive, era-defining hits mixed with constant, steady output. Tutti Frutti, Ain't That a Shame, At My Front Door, Crazy Little Mama.
Friendly Persuasion, Love Letters in the Sand, Speedy Gonzales, White Christmas.
Quando. Baby Elephant
Honestly.
Walk. The list spans years and years of relentless production.
If we connect this massive list of singles and eclectic albums back to Arthur Rowe's assertion
That the 1957 album Pat could have derailed his career.
Exactly. The discography proves that momentum is the ultimate defense against failure.
When you produce this much volume across this many genres and eras,
You make yourself undeniable through sheer persistence.
you build so much career equity that the missteps don't define you.
The act of production itself becomes the defining characteristic of your career.
So what does this mean for you listening right now when you're scaring down your own professional misstep?
The core takeaway from Pat Boone's 1957 album isn't about the intricacies of mid-century pop music.
No, it is a blueprint for how to handle failure.
This deep dive demonstrates that a strong foundation,
Getting off to that early, fast start with competent work.
combined with relentless forward momentum, is your absolute best defense against a critical flop.
You will eventually release a 2.5-star project. We all have an album Pat in our professional history.
The fatal mistake isn't releasing it,
The mistake is letting that one project paralyze you and stop you from recording the next one.
which actually brings up a really compelling new angle to consider as we wrap up today.
Oh, what's that?
Well, when you examine this source material, the rigid 2-minute run times, the reliance on a massive external network of songwriters like Jesse Stone and Joe Morris,
And the sheer industrial volume of singles.
it makes you wonder about the very nature of critique. If a 1950s pop album is essentially just a physical container for 2-minute commodities written by a dozen different people,
Does the concept of a bad album even apply to the artist?
right. Or when a pure vocal interpreter releases a 2.5-star record, is it actually a failure of the era's A and R machine and supply chain rather than a true reflection of the artist's legacy?
That's a great point.
If an artist is essentially a brand slapped onto hundreds of manufactured tracks, does the traditional metric of artistic failure even exist for them? Does early success grant a permanent, lifelong license to experiment, even if you fail?
That completely flips the script on how we view a bad review. And it's definitely something to chew on the next time you're worried about carrying the blame for a project that misses the mark. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep building your discography. Don't let the 2.5-star days derail your momentum, and we will see you next time.